Shalom, family, and thank you so much for joining us for this week's weekly news updates. Always a pleasure and a privilege for me to join you for these weekly updates. And again, we like to take that 10,000-foot view. Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining us. Welcome in. Come one, come all. We're always grateful you're here. And thank you again for those of you sharing the links and helping us to grow the channel and encourage other people to crack open the book and take a look, right? Crack open the book and take a look. Exactly. And we're just thankful for all of you who continue to share the link, encourage others, speak life, speak life. There's enough things out there speaking death. There's enough problems out there. Let's be the solution to the problems out there. Amen. Let's try to be a positive voice in a very difficult and harsh world. I tell you, there's a lot of fighting, a lot of anger, a lot of raging going on out there, a lot of battling, right? And you are all called to be the light in the darkness. Don't forget that. That's a really important thing. We can get too caught up in the cares of this world, the deceitfulness of riches, and the lust of other things, and it would choke the word and make it unfruitful. So let's not let that happen. Thank you again for joining me, all of you here on the chat. Always a pleasure. I'm so glad you're here. And for those of you that are joining us, perhaps for the first time, we do have a growing audience. So you never know. Maybe you're here. Maybe you stumbled along. Maybe you're like, what is everybody doing over here? Why are all these believers over here doing the news over here differently? Maybe you popped in. All right. Well, come on in. Come on. Join us. Pop in on the chat. You got other brothers and sisters over here that are happy to welcome you and encourage you and join with you. And it's a wonderful thing. And we do have the remnantwatch.com website for those of you that are, again, new here. So we just wanted to share that so you can bookmark it. And here we put all the stories that we're going to talk about all during this broadcast. You also have a search bar for any stories because, there's a lot. So you might want to search, and you're going to find it. But the nice thing is you're not seeing a bunch of pop-ups. Sorry, guys. You're not seeing a bunch of other things. Makes it easy to get through the news. And by the way, there's this real handy banner up here. So if you're ever running late and you're not sure where the link is for the latest broadcast, all you got to do is hit that banner. It's going to take you right in. All right. So that's a really handy thing. And it brings you always to this broadcast right here. So if you're with us here on YouTube, welcome. Thanks for joining us. For those of you on Rumble and Facebook, share the link. Thank you so much for joining us. And on that note, let's get into the news. And tonight, we've got a number of different things that we could have started our discussion on, but this particular story, of course, we can't ignore. When they're telling us that, let me pop that off the screen. They just love to do this, don't they, guys? The China now is a nuclear threat to the West, according to the Telegraph. And, I don't really generally pop in and endorse these things, but you can know what's going on. And if you want to go ahead and sign up for free, welcome to do that. But you should know that this is now the new narrative. This is a very important thing that we watch from the 10,000-foot view. And the reason why we watch it is because, guys, we know that the war of words always precedes the precipitous actions, right? So before we saw bombing, what are we going to see? We're going to see hot, heated words, right? And many of you are going to tie that together with some things we watch, statements being made, in previous broadcasts that are now being executed on. So we see that when these statements are being made, when this narrative is being pumped into the public psyche, it is for a reason. So that's why we pay attention to those things, folks. And China is responding to the what they, I think, are expecting a tariff war, right? So they're jumping ahead. And this is really going to start to affect people. They don't realize a lot of times, especially an empire that is in decline, one of the hardest things for people in decline to realize is that they're in decline. And so they're going to lose a lot on the way down. China bans exports to U.S. of gallium, germanium, and antimony in response to chip sanctions. So we've apparently there were some chip sanctions, and this is being done by the current administration. So, It's a bit of a setup going into the new administration. China announced Tuesday it is banning export to the United States of gallium, germanium, antimony, and other key high-tech materials with potential military applications as a general principle, lashing back at U.S. limits on semiconductor-related exports. The Chinese Commerce Ministry announced the move after the Washington expanded its list of Chinese companies subject to export controls on computer chip making equipment. So, the U.S. is about to circle its wagons on chip making. My expectation is that you're going to see a next generation of chips, a next generation of processors, a next generation of technology that's going to come out in the United States in an attempt to recover its technological advantage. We'll see how that works out. But that is what it looks like they're setting up for. So this is good news for those in the tech sector that saw a lot of jobs going overseas and saw a lot of things disappearing into the East. This war, while it portends difficulty in importing, does portend rapid growth. They are setting up for rapid technological growth right here in the United States. So that's a double-edged sword story. That story, on the one hand, says, we're going to have a hard time in the short term getting certain things, especially as they work out these deals. I'm sure they'll work it out. But in the long term, what it's indicating is this is now shifting. And so many things in this are actually a good thing. I do believe these are opportunities. So pay attention, folks, and keep your eyes open, because you're going to be seeing a lot of things changing in this next season. Speaking of changing, all of a sudden, South Korea got in the news because of their president declaring martial law. I don't know if you guys heard about this, but the South Korean president declared martial law in a move against the opposition party. And actions are being taken. Basically, South Korea is really struggling right now. And this is a bad sign in a time when North Korea may want to just go ahead and take advantage of this chaos. And could it be that this chaos is being caused deliberately on purpose to bring them to a place where there will be conflict? So stand by. South Korean President Yoon Suk Yeol declared martial law on Tuesday, accusing the opposition of anti-state activity. In an unannounced address broadcast on live late at night on YTN, Yoon said he had no choice but to make drastic measures to protect South Korea's freedoms and the constitutional order. It's funny how they always couch these decisions, these authoritarian decisions, as if they, the individual, is going to preserve your rights. But in the process, they have usurped your rights. Isn't that interesting how they do that? It's an interesting play on words. It's just really quite funny, but quite common. So interesting to watch. We have some delusion in operation there. And, there are a lot of people out there that say, but I'm doing this for your own good. And that's what I'm hearing there. So thankfully, the South Korean people saw through this power grab, for lack of a better word, and immediately revolted. I think you're seeing a test case against authoritarian power. And I think that there is going to be no atmosphere on earth that's going to be safe for authoritarians and those who are dictators. I think that dictatorial power is going to be immediately rebuffed in this current atmosphere, literally throughout the earth. So those who are trying to ascend to power to attempt some dictatorial strength or hand will find the world to be a difficult place. And as a matter of fact, speaking of dictators that are no longer in power, big changes occurred since last week, since we last talked, in the Middle East. And Syria's Assad has fallen after a 24-year rule, which creates a power vacuum in the Middle East. And as Bashar al-Assad of Syria fled to Moscow, the looters started raiding the presidential palace. I saw pictures of Aston Martins and all kinds of things he had in his presidential palace, and people took to the streets of Damascus celebrating his demise. And the Syrian president had tried to hang on until the bitter end, still desperately sending an SOS to anyone who would listen, including Donald Trump. a despot had run out of the road. And so a lot of people are celebrating in Syria because of this family, which usurped authority approximately 50 years ago. So an interesting 50-year period has come to a conclusion. Now, that's two that we've taken note of this year. We also saw the 50-year petrodollar agreement with Saudi Arabia came to a close in June of this year, if you guys remember. So interesting times indeed. Those are the end of Jubilee periods. And what are we seeing now? But essentially a financial Jubilee coming in, whether you noticed it or not. There are things going on behind the scenes. I can tell you there are some conversations going on behind the scenes. Even AI knows it's over for the old order. All right, it's over. But let me tell you, I don't think that it just happenstance fell. I wonder, and I tell you, the scripture tells us, woe to the inhabitants of the earth and the sea, because the devil is come down with great wrath, knowing that he hath but a short time. And I feel for the people of Syria and the people that are in the area of the Bible, the area of the scripture, Israel, Syria, Turkey, Lebanon, that whole theater of operations. Well, it's all a very dangerous place to be, isn't it? And as a matter of fact, we see that it wasn't just accidental. It wasn't just happenstance that Syria's Assad suddenly was deposed. It wasn't just the rebels. Okay, the U.S. strikes dozens of ISIS camps and operatives in Syria amidst Assad's downfall. I'm not buying that. This looks to me like it helped his downfall. And I know that this was one of their objectives before they were to, quote, leave office. So this is interesting that this is being done, pushed hard before the new administration arrives. The U.S. Central Command, CENTCOM, conducted dozens of airstrikes on known ISIS camps and operatives in central Syria. Known by whom? We don't have any confirmation of that. We have no knowledge of that, but you are told that these are known operatives. Okay. On Sunday, to prevent the terrorist organization from taking advantage of the demise of Syrian dictator Bashar Assad's regime. So this was done sympathetically. After Assad's family ruled over Syria for more than 50 years, Assad was forced to flee Syria and Russia, where he was granted asylum when a coalition of largely radical Islamist groups led a sweeping offensive across Syria and captured the country's capital city. So Damascus has fallen. And of course, there is a prophecy in the book of Isaiah that speaks of Damascus becoming a ruinous heap. So the question has always been for me, or recent years, has always been which Damascus, because there's two. So there's that. But it's interesting, nevertheless, for us to take a look at these things and see what is going on. And Syria's rebels captured the city, key city of Hama, and that was leading up to this. So it wasn't a 1 minute sweep. It was a period of push against them. And of course, depending upon the news media, you're going to have a designation put upon a certain group of people. So if you were the I don't know, people living in Jericho, well, then you would have said the Hebrew rebels that have escaped Egyptian captivity are now at the gates of Jericho. So depending upon who's telling the story, you're going to have a different spin on that story. And this is a very important thing that I hope all of you are starting to pick up when you're reading through these things, and hopefully you're starting to calm down, get a little less bothered. Don't let them control your emotions. And you go, wait a minute, who wrote this? We had one story from Holly, somebody. I'm like, I don't think Holly got on a plane and went and checked any of this, right? So the investigative journalism that you and I grew up, where a lot of my generation grew up with, where guys would literally report from battlefields and from places, and had a lot more, I think, journalistic integrity. At least I think so. Maybe we were all deceived the whole time, guys. I don't even know, but I know it's a lot worse now. Now they just, at least they pretended back then. Now it's like they don't even pretend. They just anonymous sources. Anonymous sources. They used to not. Don't you remember Superman? He would Superman, the editor. He wouldn't publish those stories. You got to get me a source. What happened to that, right? What happened to Lou Grant? What happened to all these? Remember Mary's How to Mormon? She can never publish a story without a source. Come on, man. Right? Now it's just anonymous sources just say. And this is going straight for it. They're like, look, we're tired of the whole ruse. We're tired, and most of you ain't figuring it out anyway. So we're just gonna tell you. We're just gonna tell you. It's actually kind of hilarious. And so, a lot of things are changing now. And of course, socially, there's a lot of social change that are now starting to kick in. And I read a story that, the whole bathroom controversy is now being reversed. I mean, all of a sudden that's no longer apparently an issue. So that's kind of an interesting situation. But yeah, Syria has definitely Assad has definitely fallen. Syria they're rejoicing. I saw them celebrating in the street. So I guess we're going to see how this falls out. But one thing that I found interesting, we're going to get to this here, was that Turkey made a move at the same time. So, of course, they always take the high ground and act like they're doing you a favor and helping you out. And after all, what they're doing is a good thing, right? Don't you remember this guy? This guy was telling us that, he was responding to a terrorist attack, and that's why they were absolutely leveling, a whole bunch of people. And again, not taking sides in these things, but I still haven't found a good answer for what a bomb solves. So there's that. Other than making parking lots, if you want a demolition, that might work. Well, Netanyahu is set to take the witness stand for the first time in his corruption trial. So I told you, now that the smoke is clearing, let's get back to the business you delayed. Okay, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is set to take the witness stand Tuesday for the first time in his trial on corruption allegations. I saw a deposition that didn't look good. And a pivotal point in the drawn-out proceedings that comes as he wages war in Gaza and faces an international arrest warrant for war crimes charges. And Netanyahu is on trial at home on accusations of fraud, breach of trust, and accepting bribes on 3 separate matters. And so he is in deep trouble. As we started to watch this happen, guys, we were paying attention to their change of tactic. Now Israel's got to put him on a hot seat so they can try and back off the international community. Hey, we're policing our own people. We're taking care of our own stuff. Here's the problem. This is not just a within Israel problem. Those outside of Israel have a legitimate right for their grievance. This is why the ICC granted the warrant. So this is not over. This is about to get very, very interesting. And the Middle East has turned into a very interesting neighborhood now, folks. It's kind of a power grab. And whenever there's a vacuum, whenever there's power vacuums, oh, believe me, there are those that were waiting for those power vacuums to manifest. Something that's been happening lately on the East Coast of the United States is really, really puzzling. Have you guys heard about all of these drones, these mystery drones that keep showing up? And I keep seeing these videos or different news stories talking about, quote, mysterious drone clusters or drone packet, groups of them. People from all across Delaware Valley and up northern New Jersey have reported seeing clusters of drones in the sky over the past several weeks. Numerous reports were sent to Action News about flying objects in media and Brummel in Delaware County, as well as Philadelphia's mayor section in the Cherry Hill, Camden County. So apparently this is becoming quite a phenomenon. I found several stories about this, guys, about drones. Now, have you guys, I'm asking because we've noticed this drone thing several times. It's come up a number of times in stories throughout this last year. The stories of either being used for military purposes or surveillance purposes or peeping Tom, all kinds of different things, but they keep coming up in the story. And then, of course, we saw the military applications with the Houthis, right? And there have been confirmed mystery drone sightings near Round Valley Reservoir in the Hunterdon County 9/11 Center in Flemington County, whatever. Okay, so the point is that this is starting to become more common, and they're raising the awareness level. Now, why are they doing that? There's a reason for that. What do we now know about drones, and especially drone warfare? Let's take a moment to talk about this, okay, guys, before we go too far. What did we see? We saw two situations in conflicts where drones were actually very effective. Now, they didn't necessarily turn the tide or anything, okay? I'm not saying they were that effective, but they were definitely effective. They were used by an inferior or an army that doesn't have the resources, right? So you're talking about, in the case of Ukraine, we saw several reports over the last several years, excuse me, of damage that was done by Ukraine against Russia using drones. We saw that. We saw reports of it. If you run a search on Remnant Watch, you'd probably find them. Okay. We also saw stories where they used drones to attack Navy vessels. I mean, multi-billion-dollar Navy vessels were incapacitated by drones. Again, didn't exactly turn a war or anything, but an interesting reality. So when I start seeing drone technology that is now sort of coming into the psyche at a time when conflict levels are rising in the Middle East, and the threats have been that the United States and Western nations will not be sitting out the next conflict in the Middle East. In other words, there are those who are committed to bringing that fight home, okay, so that people who bring war will feel war. Does that make sense? So that's why I'm concerned. That is what has me concerned at this point. That and spam phone calls. That also has me concerned. I that phone I don't even use, and I get spam phone. That's how I know it's a spam, because I don't use that phone, so I know you spam. Isn't that crazy? And so the FBI is out there investigating this. The devices have raised concerns due to their proximity to Trump's golf course. Wait a minute, you think it's the golf course they're concerned about? These guys are so funny. It's the golf course. That's what it is. The drones are after the golf balls. The FBI is investigating it. The large drones were spotted flying over central New Jersey over the last 2 weeks. The cluster of what looked to be drones and a possible fixed-wing aircraft. Oh, they didn't mention that before. Did you guys hear about a fixed-wing aircraft in the mix? Oh, well, I didn't know that. Larger than the typical drones used by hobbyists, the devices have raised questions due to the proximity to both military installations and President-elect Donald Trump's Bedminster golf course. I'm not so sure I'd be too concerned about the golf course. The military installation, on the other hand, that they kind of threw in there, you know. And it's also by a military installation. Just FYI. Okay? Tell me that's not somebody sending a message to somebody. So, you know, we're all innocent bystanders. So we don't know about somebody got a phone call. You see those drones? See those drones? That's us letting you know. We don't know. We're only seeing the drone part. We didn't get the note. We didn't get the phone call. So we don't know. We're sitting there going, I wonder what that is. I wonder what they're trying to let you know. Like, we can get you. Who knows what's going on? We may be watching a movie right now, and we're just like, what? What happened? What happened? Speaking of a movie, did you guys hear about the United Healthcare CEO, Brian Thompson? Wow. What a week this has been. Unreal. I'm not going to show you that footage. I think you guys, if you want to go find it, you go ahead. But the United Healthcare CEO, Brian Thompson, was fatally shot outside the Hilton Hotel in Midtown in a targeted attack. And I mean, it wasn't even a joke. This guy, I watched the video. This guy walked up calmly and just emptied a bolt action handgun right into this guy. Cold-blooded. And it was cold-blooded. It was cold-blooded murder. And it was videotaped. The guy is, I'm shocked that he hasn't been caught yet, because what happened to that facial recognition and all that? So I only work on good guys. What? What? Where's the enemy of the state guys by now? Shouldn't they be knocking down his cousin's door by now? I mean, that was wild. Okay. But then to find out this wasn't a random act. This is the attitude. Okay. This is the attitude. Yeah. And let's hope they caught him, because that's pretty rough. But this is the backlash for the healthcare industry. There was a lot of sympathy. That was what made this story interesting. It wasn't interesting that the guy did, a horrible thing, because he did a horrible thing. I don't care what this other guy was guilty of. What you did was a horrible thing. Now you got two wrongs. Whatever he did, you did something wrong. But interestingly enough, the backlash, or the not backlash, but the public reaction. Didn't you guys find that interesting? They didn't want to help him find the bad guy. I was listening to stories, and they were having trouble getting cooperation because people were feeling sympathy for the guy who killed the guy because of the victim. Now, in any other circumstance, we would be like, what? That's ridiculous. But in this circumstance, you kind of understand. And I'm going to show you why. Because on the bullets, apparently he left a message which tied to a book about denying coverage to people that are on the edge of death for things like anesthesia during surgery. Yeah. Things like that. Anesthesia during surgery. I was like, what? Are you crazy? Yep. They were doing that to folks. So cutting corners on their coverages. And so this apparently was the, repercussion, right? So I'm not endorsing this by any means. I think it was horrible what this person did. But it's interesting that the general public's attitude was they weren't trying to help the cops find this guy. United Healthcare CEO shooting suspect unmasked in new photos, believed to have left message on bullet casings. Evidence at the scene of United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson's murder show the words deny, depose, and defend written on live rounds and casings left behind. So that clearly was not just some random act. The suspect gunman wanted the broad daylight slaying of Brian Thompson is seen smiling in new surveillance images released by the New York City Police Department on Thursday. The unknown man's face is shown for the first time in two new images. And so, okay, they're going to catch this guy. If they haven't caught him already, they're going to catch him, because now they've got his face. And again, that was a horrible crime. I don't care what this guy did. And I do agree that there are people that have every right to have a serious issues with the medical field. I think that there's remedies for that. I think you should follow the remedies that are available. I don't think you should walk down Fifth Avenue and empty your gun into somebody. So that's not acceptable. I don't care. But I also don't think that it's okay for the medical profession to get away with some of these crimes. So I do think that there does need to be a legal process for that. And I think that's what's coming. I do. I think that is something we may be seeing in the very short term here, because there's a lot of anger and a lot of pushback now coming for the medical field, which seem to be brazenly trying to accomplish a certain goal. As a matter of fact, maybe you can discern that goal by reading this headline. Okay. I mean, this is blatant, folks. This is like, we'll just pay you to die. Can we just pay you to die? How about we just pay you? I can't believe this headline, folks. I can't. I'm literally stunned that I'm reporting this story tonight. UK seniors would have huge, you're reading that right, a huge tax incentive to choose assisted suicide if it became legal. They get tax incentives. Can you believe this? They're just going straight. They're done trying to pretend. Now they're straight coming and saying, we just die. We just die. Can we just give you some money to die? Less than a week after the UK's assisted suicide law passed its second reading, people are already musing about the many reasons the elderly and ill might opt for a lethal injection. I can't believe we're having this conversation. I'm sorry. I know that maybe some people have an opposite point of view. I'd love to hear it. I really would. Maybe I'm missing something here, because this seems horrible. This seems like we have gone into a new place as a species, as Earth. We've come to a new place that I never saw coming. I mean, I did expect there to be tribulation, right? I expected there to be wars, rumors of wars, but this is something I did not see coming. And that they're paying people, essentially bribing them to do it. I love your reactions, guys. Wow. That's pretty much what I want to say is wow. And somebody mentioned this in the chat, and you got ahead of me, but you were right. There was evidence. There's spooky things going on. I think this might be things are affecting people's thinking. We don't even know what it is. Okay, while you're getting revelation, paid suicide. Where you're getting revelation knowledge, you're getting witty inventions, you're getting wiser, you're getting sharper, right? You're all getting brighter. You're all getting more. You're getting quicker. You're getting sharper, right? Is the opposite happening on the other side, and we're not really noticing it? Is that what's happening? Because it sure seems that way. And here we have mysterious New Jersey drone changed times on clocks now. What? Yeah. A swarm of mysterious drone sightings near President-elect Donald Trump's New Jersey Bedminster a golf club continue to baffle residents. And guess what? The drones keep coming in one after another, and they were reporting, right, that it changed times on clocks. Guys, I don't know what's going on here. I didn't read the whole story. I just went off the headline, so you guys can check it out. But I thought that was bizarre. I'm like, what? Yeah. So somebody mentioned that. I just want to throw that on the screen. Yeah, that's over at Remnant Watch if you want to get into it a little bit more. But I think there's a lot of weird tech that's getting its running. Like they're like emptying Area 51 or something. Like, go get them, guys. Let's go out there and show them what we got. I don't know. Like I said, the enemy has come down with great wrath, knowing he has but a short time. We don't know, but we're certainly seeing some really odd things in this moment. Speaking of something terrible and horrible, I know many of you, and we've covered this several times in our weekly news updates over the especially last year, but it really ramped up. We had a lot more stories, and then it kind of went into the dark, but it didn't go away. The serious fentanyl problem that we have in the United States and throughout the West, really, and was not abated at all by a porous southern border. So we know that the problem is exponential, but it actually got worse, which I could not believe because this stuff is so deadly, right? I mean, if you guys have heard about fentanyl, this is extremely potent, deadly drug. My introduction to it was post a major heart surgery for my son. So fentanyl is a serious, serious drug. And for people to be using it on the street, it does not surprise me at all, nor should it surprise any of you that they're falling over dead, right? I mean, they're messing around with something that's basically an anesthesia. It's surgery level drugs we got going on here, and they're playing around with it. Okay, well, now a new urgent message is coming out just before the holidays. An urgent CDC warning on new drug, carfentanil. It's 100 times more deadly than fentanyl, and it kills hundreds in 37 states. This just came out. Health officials are warning about a drug 100 times more potent than fentanyl. Are you kidding me? That has caused deaths in 37 states in recent years. The drug called carfentanil is a derivative of fentanyl that was designed to tranquilize elephants and is the most potent commercial opioid on the market. There were 513 overdoses from carfentanil between 21 and 24, hitting states like Florida, West Virginia, and the CDC reported a report published today. So it took them a while to come and tell us all that this was going on in our country. And it comes in a powder, a paper, a tablet, a patch, a spray form. It can be inhaled, absorbed through the skin. I saw a video of, they were warning women. So all my sisters out there, you be careful because there was some money and on the ground, and it was like a Walmart parking lot. And there was like a $20 bill on the ground. And the guy was videotaping. He goes, "This is what you need to be really careful for." He goes, "So a lot of times there's some nefarious people who put money on the ground, but then they'll put this stuff inside the bill. And as soon as you touch it, that's all you had to do. Just a tiny bit is enough to knock you out. It's enough to kill an elephant. So how much does it need for you? You don't weigh, no matter how big you are, you ain't an elephant. Okay, come on. So you're going to get knocked out. All right. And they're going to take advantage of you. So this is a very dangerous time. And that's running 100 times more potent than fentanyl, which was the scariest drug we'd seen ever. And now this is 100x. I think that's the wrong 100x. I don't think we want those 100x's. We want different 100x's, not those. Okay, guys? So be careful out there. All right. Be aware of what's happening. Be aware of the changes that are happening very quickly. So we keep interpreting our world as if that was the world we grew up in, right? We let our child go to the movies because we think of the movies that when we grew up, or we let our child go to public school because we think of it as the public school we grew up in. All of these paradigms have all shifted. So we need to be very careful now, brethren. All of you wise and noble people, please make good choices out there. Because the world, even the earth is shaking it up. Okay, even the earth is letting you know things are not the same. And an earthquake under a volcano near Alaska's largest city is raising concern. So we're seeing some activity again, more volcanoes. We've reported on several volcanoes in the last several weekly news broadcasts. So this is another one. Increasing number of earthquakes under volcano near Alaska's largest city this year has geologists paying attention. Mount Spur, about 80 miles northwest of Anchorage, last erupted in 1992, spewing an ash cloud nearly 12 miles into the air, prompting flights to be canceled and so forth. It isn't so much what the initial volcanic activity might do, or even the explosion might do. It isn't the damage that they might do, or even the fact that they might black sun or might block, those are all real things. Why I'm noting it is not because of the potential danger of volcanoes, because since Vesuvius, we've all known that volcanoes can erupt, right? Why it concerns me is that here is yet another volcano on Earth that has awakened. So we're seeing a trend. That's why we're pointing it out. How many of there have there been in reports this week or this year? If we ran a search just on the word volcano, you're going to find a lot of stories on Remnant Watch. So it has definitely upticked, right? And that's what I'm saying is we're noticing that the Earth itself, the scripture talks about the earth vomiting out its inhabitants and how that the earth will essentially war against the sinners. So is the earth preparing to do that is the question. That's why we're paying attention to this, because all other news aside, you don't get a volcano to react to political news. A volcano's not reacting to political news or any of this other stuff, or drones or whatever, or financial stuff, right? The volcano is reacting because Earth is reacting. It's like on a different program, and the fact that it's moving says we may be running out of time, folks. Things are getting dicey. Okay, really dicey, and it's a scary time. So pay attention. Don't be flippant. I think a lot of people are being flippant out there, and that's something that we want to make sure you're not being. And also, did you know that the atmosphere is changing in some ways to the positive, but in some ways you got new questions to ask, and this is being done in a very clever way. So there's a lot of damage control being done. Remember last week we saw that they're throwing Costco under the bus while Walmart's suddenly going back to its patriotic roots, waving flags, man, selling you fireworks. Okay, they're going to sell you fireworks and sell you flags. What? All of a sudden you're patriots? Yeah. Well, it's almost like they know they're going to be in trouble, so they better start cleaning up quick. Irving, we need to clean up in aisle 5, right? So that's what this looks like to me, guys. Anybody else notice this? This is like a real quick before we get in trouble, because there is a big group of people that have been yelling about these food dyes, right? For how long now? Okay. U.S. Food and Drug Administration moves to ban red food dye. Well, it's about time. The FDA is taking steps to ban Red 3, which is derived from oils amid concerns. Concerns. We're just concerned. We're concerned about your food. No, you're not. You just don't want to get sued. A red dye that is ubiquitous in American drinks, snacks, candies, and cereals may finally be banned by the federal government after years of concern that it has adverse health effects. Here's the problem. From the moment that first report came in that it has adverse health effects to this moment when they finally concede that it has adverse health effects, there is a massive window of liability. Massive. This is why government shouldn't be in this business. It shouldn't be in the business of this kind of activity because of that very reason. They also need to be liable if they made the wrong choice. Okay. And they all act like they're not going to be held accountable, like they are behind some impervious wall. And they're about to find out that, what Netanyahu found out. They're about to find out, okay, that no, you're not exempt. So that's real great that the Food and Drug Administration is finally banning something that should never have been included in food for children ever. Never once, not the first day, not the fifth day, never. So from that day to this day, as far as I'm concerned, all you're doing is telling us you, in fact, realize a crime was committed. Now, I hope they take it to the next step and go find the perpetrators, because people did this on purpose, folks. Okay. This was not accidental. All right. And so, you're going to consider that a win. You're going to get excited. People are going to be like, well, it's about time. Good things are coming. That's a positive sign. We're taking back our government. Okay. It's going to be feeding a narrative there. Be careful there. Don't get too euphoric. They're just admitting something they should never have allowed to begin with. Great news. You're going to quit, beating the neighbor. Isn't that great? Shouldn't we celebrate? You know what I mean? Like that's like announcing you're no longer going to spray poisons on food. And we should celebrate this, right? So I think that we have to change. They're trying to get us to be happy with crumbs. They're trying to get us to be happy with just a concession, just a mea culpa, when they wouldn't let you get away with that. I said they wouldn't let you get away with that. Now, one of the things that we watched, guys, you guys are sharp, so I know you're already on this. We watched them dropping narrative from a year ago, I think. About a year ago, guys, when we were hearing about bird flu affecting milk, affecting cows. Remember that we first saw us, we're like, where are you guys going with this? What? First of all, you got to convince us something cross species. Second of all, you got to convince us it got into the milk. I mean, you're stretching here, big time, hardcore. We saw it, we watched it, right, guys? And we were watching it going, where are they going with this? Like we're seeing all these stories going, okay, birds giving cows flu. Okay. And like people all over Earth are going, what? Didn't they try that with horses during the Spanish flu? How'd that go? I happen to know what the test data showed. If you go look, you'll find out it's nonsense. Utter nonsense. So what are you talking about here? There's an agenda, folks. There's an agenda. And we spotted it. That's why we watch things from the 10,000-foot view, folks. That's why, because we see these things coming from that far away. And how many of you were picking it up? They're coming for the raw milk. They're coming for it. Look at this. USDA orders. Now they're ordering. Who are they ordering? Who works for them? Who do they have the power to order? Who gave them authority? Who are these unelected, unchosen, not consent to the governed people ordering things? Are you seeing this? I'm just going to pass an edict and I'm going to order you. Can you believe this? Testing of milk for bird flu. The mandate targeted bulk milk transporters and dairy processors is meant to help identify herds that have caught the virus, which has spread among livestock. So now they're really convincing you that this is even possible. This is utter nonsense. But they got people convinced that this is what's happening, so they got to test for it. Wow, do they make up a bunch of stuff. They just make it up as they go. This irritates me because they're messing with children, they're messing with families, and they're doing it on purpose. Okay. The sooner we put all of this stuff behind us, the better. Folks, this is what happens when you let bureaucracies run amok. And the founding fathers would be rolling over in their graves right now, going, they what? They did what? They commanded what? You put out an advisory, you let everybody know. You say, hey, keep an eye out. What's with this ordering people? Where'd they get? You see the dictatorial power there? You see that dictatorial power? Who gave that to them? Who? On the one hand, they're telling us, watch out for the dictators. On the other hand, we order you. Watch out for folks trying to help you out. Watch out for folks doing things for your own good, taking power over entire groups of people for their own good. That's diminutive. It's disrespectful. It's insulting. And it is illegal. As far as I'm concerned, it's unlawful. It is anti-constitutional. It interferes with your life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. After all, according to them, your pursuit of happiness could even include taking a tax benefit for suicide. If I can take a tax benefit for suicide, why do you give a flying flip what's in my milk? Let's move on. My goodness, they're crazy. And so we're seeing all kinds of things, and they keep pumping these narratives. They keep pumping this word that doesn't even exist, folks. They keep pumping these things that are actual reactions of a body detoxing itself from eating poisonous food. You got to do your homework. You can't stop. You got to stop believing things that are just pumped narrative after narrative after narrative. And now, because of the change of atmosphere, let's face it, atmosphere has changed. And the economic atmosphere is changing. Have you guys noticed that? How many know that Americans are walking into a trap? Americans right now are walking into a trap. They got all excited because Bitcoin went north. They got all excited because all these assets, all these digital assets, the dollar's dropping like crazy. But they have a hedge against their own collapse. You know that? You know what it's called? It's called capital gains. Yep. They have capital gains waiting right there, December 31st, waiting for everybody to cross that line and not realize that, oops, they made a boo-boo. And now they're going to have to owe there, and they're going to recover their system using the gains you got from their demise. It's wild what we're watching here. And right now, we're seeing unprecedented hacking. So we were warned about that, right, guys? We were warned about that. So what are we seeing now? We're seeing a lot more encryption. A lot more encrypted using encryption is good for your phones, apparently. Crypto phone. You need a crypto phone. That's a good thing. U.S. officials are urging Americans to use a crypto phone, an encrypted app, after the Chinese hack. So they're getting everybody to switch over to encrypted communication. U.S. officials are urging Americans to use encrypted apps to protect their communication. So first they whacked WhatsApp. Remember that? They wouldn't let WhatsApp be encrypted. They had to have a back door. And then they finally got that done. Now they're encouraging everybody to use an encrypted app. Did you catch that? Let's try this again. First, they said, we got to be able to have access to these encrypted apps. Then, okay, so if you remember, it was like, don't use encrypted apps because, they were discouraging it. Then they got the back door. I don't want to go into it, but they got the back door. They got the back door. Okay. Now everybody uses encrypted apps. And by the way, it's encrypted. So you can say whatever you want now. Because you're encrypted. You're safe. You're totally good. We keep falling for this because we keep believing that they have our best interests in heart. But the world is waking up to the fact that we've been captured by a bunch of abusers. And they tell you what you want to hear just to kick the can down the road a year or a day or a week, or sometimes just an hour. Okay. It's crazy. And, this surveillance attitude is pervasive. It's pervasive. I've been saying this, been reacting to it. I know many of you reacted to it as well, as you get more and more of these stories. And we grew up in a certain way. We grew up, my generation, and people of, in my generation, you didn't do these things. There were things called peeping Toms. It was a crime. Okay. You don't peep on other people. You don't read other people's mail. That's a federal crime, right? I mean, this is how we grew up. We just don't do that. You don't You don't read other people's stuff. Like, you don't entitle yourself to private things. Okay. Not anymore. I don't know what happened to this world. Now Meta's out here apologizing, says it mistakenly moderated too much. Too often, harmless content gets taken down or restricted, and too many people get penalized unfairly, said the president of the company. What is going on here? They all went to Mar-a-Lago. That's what happened. They all got told that if they don't back off, they're all going to go down. And they're all coming out going, maybe we were a little harsh. Maybe we should outlaw that red dye. Okay, so there's definitely some changes, and some of them are good. Some of them are, really good choices. Some of them are just plain old, what we in the remnant would consider to be plain old common sense. That you had to actually say this out loud tells you we are moving towards idiocracy, folks. The fact you got to say this out loud says that we have dropped in serious, we have a serious, we don't just have an asset drop, we have an IQ drop. Ohio governor signs bill requiring students to use school bathrooms based on their biology, right? So you don't have to have an opinion about this. We don't care about everybody's opinions on it. I'm just grateful to see that there's shifting going on that's indicating that people are changing thinking. That's what we're watching. So we're watching a shift of thinking. Whichever direction it's going, it's going. We're just watching the shift. We're not judging the shift. We happen to agree with some of it, but we agreed with it a long time ago. They didn't ask us. They didn't care. They didn't care what we thought. And as a matter of fact, I just commented on this today because Yahuwah is bringing back manhood. And I mean, he's bringing back testosterone-filled manhood. And we were just talking about this here today, how that Yahuwah is bringing his men back to being men. And they don't want to follow somebody that is confused about that last topic. And there's a lot of really soft guys that are just, hey guys, let's just, and that's not who men want to follow. I'm sorry. The scripture calls that effeminate, and that's a very strong word in the scripture. And so it's interesting to me that we're seeing a shift, a polarization, almost like a wake-up call, that men are going, hey, we're men, and women are going, hey, we're women. And it's like this amazing revelation is occurring, because I think this Baphomet thing was trying to bring everybody into this homogenous middle where we didn't really know what we were anymore. We're all homogenized into this thing. We were this Baphomet thing, whatever they were trying to make us all into. And we're all just going, no, we don't think so. I'm a man, and I'm a man, I'm a man, I'm a man, I'm a man. Right? And so that's what's happening. Well, it's not just happening in one part of the world, it's happening everywhere. Look at this. Young men are leaving traditional churches for masculine Orthodox Christianity in droves. What? Yeah. And mainly because I think that they're looking for something more substantive in terms of actual order, if you will, and some of those things. So the non-denominationals went so far into Hippieville that they lost everybody. And again, Yahushua never came to create any of that. So that's all a bunch of wasted time. It's all going up in smoke. All right? That's not what Yahuwah sent Mashiach to do, not to start new religions. And so that's why these are all collapsing. And they're going back to the Orthodox because they're retracing their steps. They're not done. They're going to keep retracing their steps. They're going to find the flaws in that too, but they're moving. And that's a good thing. And why are they moving? Well, because they're busting these guys. They're busting these guys as the fakes that they are. They always were. It always was about money. It was always about their own, things. It wasn't about serving you. It wasn't about you. It was about them. And they're getting caught. And it's happening literally weekly. We do a report, okay? Here we have Michael Brown, who, according to the Christian Post, I didn't write the story. It just is there. He admits a lack of judgment as women accuse him of sexual misconduct. How many of these have we seen? I mean, this literally the Christian community is coming apart with these accusations. I've never seen anything like it. The last time I saw any kind of scandals to this magnitude was when the Catholic priest thing started to come out. Remember, Ben, they first started to come out with what we now know is pretty normal, right? But when it first started to break, we were there. When that first started to come out, it was always true, but it wasn't in the public. And it finally started to come into the public, and reports started to come out, and it was devastating. Well, this kind of stuff continues to come out, and it is equally devastating, because I got to tell you, folks, as a people, we we don't expect pastors and ministers to be perfect. Well, people sometimes do, but we do expect them to be honest, and taking advantage of your position of authority so that you can take advantage of another person is wrong. I don't care if you're young or old. And some of these situations that we're watching, of course, we're watching horrible abuses being uncovered. And so I'm very grateful that the pushback is real. But nevertheless, I do believe that part of that is restoring the hearts of the fathers to the children, and the hearts of the children to their fathers, as prophesied in the book of Malachi. And so let me encourage all of you, hug your families a little closer, pull everyone a little closer, push back against the evil encroachments of this world, because if you let them, they will do your thinking for you. If you let YouTube, if you let the television, if you let cartoons even, much less their movies and sitcoms, do the thinking for you in your homes, then you are going to have their results. And their results, folks, are disastrous. They're P. Diddy disastrous. Don't fall for it. Don't idolize these falling stars. Every one of them are ruining the day they followed the devil. They look successful. They look great. But if you catch them with the cameras off on a quiet day, they wish they never followed the devil for one step. They've got to keep pretending everything's great as they're on their way to hell. And so let me encourage you to be a bright light in this hour. Be a shining bright light. Be a vessel of honor in a time when so many are dishonorable. Be a barakah to your brethren. And if your terms and conditions are you're going to keep the peace, then keep it. I wrote something on Facebook today I want to share. If you are not the one who broke the peace, then reconciling is very easy. But for the person who broke the peace, that is a long walk. Never be the one that breaks the peace. Preserve it, guard it. As the scripture says, we live with one another and preserve the bond of our shalom. Well, that's it for tonight. I pray this broadcast, this news update has been a barakah to you. And again, I want to thank you all for sharing the link, for joining us for these weekly updates, and for your loving and kind comments that you keep sending up. So thank you for that. I appreciate it. I needed that because I didn't know what I was doing when I first started doing these updates, and you encouraged me right along. So this is as much your update as is mine, and I'm thankful for every one of you. Well, that's it for tonight. May Eloah Hayam Baruch each and every one of you. Good night.